Yo, Hoopalings, Hoopa here, and in my previous video where I discussed Paldea's history teacher, Miss Ryfort, if you guys haven't watched that video, go check it out, it's really cool. One of the main discussions brought up was the Disaster Quartet. One of the things mentioned about them in the video is that I believe that these Pokemon were used as sacrificial items, or at least the items that were used to make up these Pokemon were. And in this video, I wanted to go a bit more in depth on why I believe that that's the case. So, let's get started. If you played through Scarlet and Violet and completed Miss Ryfort's side quests, you'll know about the Disaster Quartet, Chien-Pao, Wo-Chien, Chien-Lu, and Ting-Lu. These Pokemon are dubbed the Disaster Quartet because of their Pokedex entries, which talk about how they can cause natural disasters just by existing. I mean, Ting-Lu's Dex entry even states that just by bringing its head down, it can cause fissures that run over 160 feet deep, which is both very impressive and very terrifying. However, with all the info we have on these creatures, one thing always sticks out above the rest. And that's, where did they come from? Because these Pokemon are not naturally occurring. I mean, given their Dex entries in Scarlet and Violet, it seems pretty obvious that they aren't naturally born Pokemon. It seems like envy, hate, grudges, and fear are the reasons for their existence. So, why do I think these items were used in sacrifices? Well, here's my theory. You see, these Pokemon all have two different Pokedex entries, like all Pokemon do, depending on the versions you play. But these are a little bit different. You see, in Scarlet, Ting-Lu and Wo-Chien's Dex entries state how they were made, whereas in Violet, it's in Chien-Lu and Chien-Pao's Pokedex entries that you find out how they're made. Wo-Chien was created through the grudges of a person punished for writing the evil deeds of the king upon the wooden tablets that clad itself in dead leaves. Ting-Lu was born from the fears poured into the ancient ritual vessel that clad itself in dirt. Chien-Pao was created from the hatred of those that perished by the sword that is its teeth. And finally, Chien-Lu was created by the envy of the beads that clad themselves in fire. Fear, hatred, envy, and grudges and conflict are what caused these Pokemon to be born. These are facts stated in each Pokedex entry for these Pokemon. Now this is where my theory comes into play. You see, during our history classes, we learned of the king that ruled over Paldea, and in each class we learned more about his obsession with power that eventually led him to find the 4 Tablets of Ruin. These artifacts that were now these Pokemon destroyed the kingdom because of the king's greed. But what if in his lust for power, the king sacrificed his own people to gain more power and rule through fear? I mean, Wo-Chien's Scarlet Dex entry directly states that it was made up of the grudges of people punished for writing the king's evil deeds into the wooden tablets that made up its body. And even Ting-Lu states how the fear from people were poured into its basin. What if the king started sacrificing his own people as punishment for speaking out against him? We know throughout our world's own history that sacrificing people as punishment was common. Sacrifices used knives, daggers, and even swords to do the ritual. A basin is usually placed to place things like the blood pooling from the sacrifice's body, and in some places the priest or monk wore prayer beads for such occasions. The feelings that created these Pokemon would also be present during the sacrifices as well. The sacrifice in question would be fearful, their families would feel hatred that their family was to die, and they would hold grudges for that. And the most devout of the people would be envious that they were not sacrificed, or maybe even other leaders would be envious of the one performing the sacrifice because they didn't get to be the ones to perform the heinous act. We know from our own history that people did act like this. Each and everything that led to these Pokemon's creations practically, if indirectly, scream that they were used as sacrificial items, from their Dex entries to their designs and even their typing, each being dark plus whatever items they were clad in to create them. Ice for snow, fire, ground for dirt, and grass for leaves. So, were they used in sacrifices? In truth, it isn't 100% stated that they were, so we don't know. But given how dark Game Freak can get with these Pokedex entries, as seen in Legends Arceus, I wouldn't be surprised if one day we get a Dex entry that outright proves that this theory is true. But as of right now, we don't know. Do I believe they were? Yes, absolutely. I believe that these Pokemon were used as sacrificial items before, when they were just items. There's too many signs pointing to the fact that even though it's not outright stated as such, it's very heavily implied that they were sacrificial items at one time. So what do you guys think of the Disaster Quartet? I personally like when Game Freak gives Pokemon a dark origin like these. It just makes them more interesting, not to mention that they are just really cool designs, like Chien-Pao being a saber-toothed snow leopard and Ting-Lu being our first ever moose Pokemon. That's really cool, and I think it's really, really interesting how two Pokemon designs that we never got until Scarlet and Violet are these sacrificial items. So everything about them are really cool. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope to see you all in the next video as well. My name is Hoopa, and I'm out. Bye, guys.